Coming up on today's episode of the DLLS Mavs podcast, we jump into the Mavs multiverse. What would the Mavericks look like if they rebuild or compete right now? Plus, Tim Legler will join us on the show today. All that and more coming up next on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Hey, what's up, DLLS Mavs Nation? It's your man, Kevin Gray, alongside Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato, Mavericks analyst Bobby Carella. We, of course, are DLLS Mavs. Appreciate you joining us here on this wonderful Wednesday episode of DLLS Mavs. We jump into the Mavs multiverse today. What could the Mavericks look like if they compete now or if they decide to rebuild around presumptive number one overall pick Cooper Flagg? Plus, we'll be joined next segment by All NBA podcast host, along with Adam Mares, Tim Legler,
the GOAT.
He'll be joining us here in our next segment on this Wednesday. Gentlemen, so Cato, what's going on?
Nothing much. How are you guys? Back in the studio.
Doing well. Tomorrow is my daughter's last day of school, so it's almost officially summertime for the kiddos. So
nice.
Getting ready for summer planning and vacationing, that type of thing, summer camp and all that good stuff. You guys will get there one day when it comes to future kids. And that
I don't think I will, but maybe.
We'll see.
What about you? How are you feeling? You good?
I'm not very far along in my family planning journey, but I am doing pretty well.
Well, maybe you could move a step closer this year. Maybe. Who knows? We'll see.
What does that mean?
No, I don't know. You said you were not close.
Was roasting me the other night. He was like, Bobby, why are you here? Why aren't you at home with your wife or something? And I'm like, well, Luds, I'm not married. And he's like, well, why aren't you at the bar? I'm like, well, Luds, should I go alone? And then after the postgame, I'm sticking around for their postgame show after the Stars clinched to go to the Western Conference Finals. And Luds is like, I was leaving. Luds like, Bobby, where are you going? You got nothing going on.
Wow.
Like, what are you going home to? And I'm like, damn, man. I'm
not even clocking your social
and
life.
now you're telling me that I don't have kids? Like, all right, I get it. I get it. I get it.
All right.
I just don't get why having a kid would stop you from going to the bar. Kids love bars.
Take my kid to the bar.
There you go.
All right,
exactly.
you're on to something.
By the way, shout out to the Stars tonight. Game 1 at the American Airlines Center as the Stars take on the Edmonton Oilers, looking to advance to the Stanley Cup Final. Of course, the Stars back in the Western Conference Final. So go Stars. Check out the best Stars podcast in the game, our DLLS Stars crew, as Bobby mentioned. Owen Newkirk, Quick Ludwig, Sean Shapiro, and Sam Nessel. They're going to have you covered all night tonight. Game 1 for the Edmonton Oilers taking on your Dallas Stars for the right to go to the Stanley Cup Final in the best of 7 series. Speaking of best of 7 series, the Western Conference Finals began last night. Eastern Conference Finals begin tonight. Last night, though, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder take out the Minnesota Timberwolves 114-88. The Thunder outscoring the Wolves 32-18 in a decisive third quarter, where the Oklahoma City Thunder were able to handle business in game number 1, gentlemen. As we watched the game last night, your thoughts on what we saw last night as the Timberwolves go down 0-1 to begin the Western Conference Finals, much like they did last year against the Dallas Mavericks in the West Final.
SGA's taking American free throws. It should be Americans taking those free throws.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely unbelievable. It was, look, I think the Thunder obviously are the better team. I think Minnesota's going to adjust to this, so I'm not ruling them out based off that game. Obviously, you can take out every single SGA free throw, and it's still like a 25-point blowout. So Minnesota is going to have to figure out some offensive stuff. I think they can figure out more offensive stuff. I don't know. Do you have any big takeaways from that game?
I mean, the big conversation, obviously, is the free throw stuff. I have gone on record multiple times throughout my very mediocre career how I feel about Shai and generally Lou Dort and kind of their whole thing. I think that's a great team, and I think it's an extremely annoying team to watch at times. Shai is one of the most talented players I've ever seen in my life, and he's also sometimes unbearable to watch. Lou Dort is a great defender, and I cannot stand watching him play basketball sometimes. I mean, we're Mavs people here. It's all right to be haters. I'm a hater. I hope that they lose. I don't want to see them win. It is just how I feel. I recognize they're great OKC fans. I know that you got a lot going on and your team is awesome and you love them very much. Please just leave me and my non-existent family alone. This is just my opinion. I don't like watching your team succeed, and I wish the Wolves all of the health and success in the world.
I think the way to draw free throws in the NBA, the number one thing that you have to do is you have to be very hard to guard off the dribble, and I think that is a majority, a high percentage of why Shea gets a lot of free throws is because he's very hard to guard off the dribble. But yeah, when he gets an advantage and uses it just to run into the defender who he has a step on, yes, but you are now using the defender as something, other than an attempt to score. And
you're not playing the game.
Yeah, it's not.
You're not playing the game.
It's a very frustrating thing to do.
Yeah, and
there have been players in Dallas who have done that as well.
Dude, Luka used to do that. Now, I think Luka did, sometimes Luka would go out of his way to try and draw a foul, but for the most part, he was getting fouled because he's not fast enough to just burn someone, whereas Shea is snaking his way through guys. He is avoiding all of that contact until the moment of truth when he's not. There have been other guys that would try and do it, but I think one of the let's put on our Mavs capes here. Kyrie does not ever do that.
That's true.
He plays through the contact and he gets a horrible whistle. He gets the whistle of a backup. I mean, the obviously the slow motion one of no one touching him and then he just falls down. There's the still frame where he's screaming that painting and no one is touching him and everyone's like, what is going on? I don't want to see that stuff. That's bad for everyone. That's bad for my spirit. It doesn't sit right with my soul. And then at the other end of the floor, Caruso is basically pulling down Nikola Jokic's pants for 100 possessions a game, and he's not getting a single whistle. So it's just it's just really annoying. That's all.
There's something a little bit more frustrating to me, and both of them. I think it's very frustrating. The very cynical pump fake and then just jump into the guy. I think that's frustrating. I don't enjoy watching that. But there's something even more cynical about having an advantage, creating an advantage, and then using that advantage not to try to score, but just to create contact, just to run into the guy. I thought the one, the and one layup that Shea kind of throws up, that one was really frustrating because it's dude, you have a step there. You have the chance to make a layup here. You have a chance to score. And the reaction from Shea was to, it wasn't, he had a half step, but he just went right into, I think that was McDaniels. It's just...
This is lame. That's what it is. It's lame. You're very good. He's a very good player. He's a great player. He's one of the best scorers in the league. He's one of the best players of the last 5 or so years, however long he's been doing his thing in OKC.
Could be named MVP tonight.
Yeah, and rightfully so. He's an awesome player. It's very lame. That kind of stuff is very lame. I don't know that I could ever do that and take myself seriously if that's the choice that I made. Just cop out and be lame like that. And if you want to love the guy, love him. But, you can also admit it's lame. Just don't be lame. Be cool. Don't be lame.
And as 214sided in the comments says, absolutely part of this is that it's incentivized by the officials, by the refs, by the way the NBA is refereed. So I do think that is worth noting, that is where a lot of this conversation starts. But at some point, as you said, there's an example, Kyrie, of a player who probably should do it more because you are incentivized to do it to some level playing this sport, but he chooses not to.
You shouldn't be trying to dupe 3 old guys. That's basically what this comes down. You're trying to trick 3 old guys with bad vision and bad hearing. You're screaming, "Hey!" and doing that over and over again, trying to deceive them into making a mistake.
Yeah.
You're not playing against the 5 guys in the same color jersey. You're playing against the 3 guys in the same color jersey.
Yeah.
And that is unbearable. No one wants to watch that. Ever.
Yeah.
No one. And yes, I was watching the 06 finals, so I am disturbed by this, and it brings back very bad memories.
But see, you triggered
Thanks
a little
for
bit.
asking. Yeah,
triggered a little bit. By the way, SGA had 31 points just on 10 of 27 from the field. He went 11 of 14 from the free throw line in the 38 minutes. that he played. On the other side, Julius Randle was great for Minnesota. He had 28. Anthony Edwards, though, not great last night. Just 5 of 13 from the field. Terrible in the fourth quarter as he finished with 18 points in 37 minutes last night. It was this third quarter, though, that really turned things for the Oklahoma City Thunder, outscoring them 32-18 in that third period, and they were able to maintain that lead for the rest of the game. Chet Holmgren was much better in the second half for Oklahoma City as well, as they take a 1-game-to-none lead in their best-of-7 series. Game 2 will be on Friday.
Yeah, Jalen Williams came alive too.
Thursday. I'm sorry. Thursday.
His whenever he plays well, they're unbeatable. Whenever he plays poor, he played poorly for much of the series against the Mavs last year, and he had some stinkers against the Nuggets too. But whenever he's on his game, you're not beating them, especially in that building.
Yeah. Game 1 tonight in the Eastern Conference Finals will get underway. The New York Knicks taking on the Indiana Pacers in an old-school throwback 90s Eastern Conference Finals. The two leading men in that series, Tyrese Halliburton for the Indiana Pacers, taking on Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks. The Knicks, of course, having won their last NBA championship back in 1973. The Indiana Pacers have never won an NBA championship. What are you guys looking forward to as Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals begins tonight in Madison Square Garden?
Oh, man. I mean, defensive matchups is a big question, I think, both ways. Nembhard on Brunson is something that hasn't gone well in the past, but then you start looking at how Indiana would, move their matchups around, and all of a sudden it's something like Tyrese Halliburton. Maybe you're going to have to guard an OG or a Mikal. If you move the matchups around like that, because you're just running out of players to guard every single body, everybody on the Knicks roster, because especially when Mitchell Robinson is out there, Siakam is ideally the player you want on Cat. You always want to play your, mobile fours on someone like Cat, a stretch big. And that just, at that point, when you start doing the trickle-down math, if Nembhard isn't somebody who can take Brunson from the jump, I think that's interesting. But I don't know. I guess I'm looking for just how the Knicks look, how New York responds to this moment. But looking forward to that series for sure.
Yeah, Nembhard and McConnell are both too small to guard Brunson. Neesmith is definitely the right kind of size, but feel like he's probably going to get in a lot of foul trouble if he's on Brunson, because he plays pretty physically. Mathurin and Shepard, I don't think, are up to the task. Maybe, Rick is the coach for the 21 Mavs. Whenever Brunson got played out of that series due to length, you think Rick is cool just switching Siakam onto Brunson and saying just make him step back, don't let him go forward? That might be maybe possibly something. I'm okay with losing to Anunoby and Mikal Bridges post up mid-range operating. It's like Halliburton and Nembhard. Cool, do that. Score 2 points at a time, 8 times a game. I'm curious to see if that happens.
Interested to see how Karl-Anthony Towns responds in this series. Wasn't necessarily great at times in the Boston series, but he was doing what they were asking him to do, and I'm interested to see that matchup between him and Miles Turner. That should be a lot of fun. Of course, a lot of Mavericks through lines in that series, particularly Rick Carlisle and the Pacers back in the conference finals for the second time in as many years, and of course, Jalen Brunson turning into superstar status with New York City, trying to help the Knicks get back to the NBA Finals. First time they are in the conference finals in 25 years for the New York Knicks. So
Obi Toppin revenge,
the Obi Toppin revenge game
under
series as well.
discussed storyline.
Exactly. So a lot of interesting storylines when it comes to the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks. That series will tip off tonight at 7 p.m. In Madison Square Garden. So looking forward to seeing what happens between both the Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. Again, Timberwolves down 1-0 to the Oklahoma City Thunder in their best-of-7 series. When we come back here on the DLLS Mavs podcast, we will be joined by all NBA podcast host and ESPN in-studio and game analyst Tim Legler is going to be joining us right here, coming up next on the DLLS Mavs podcast. But first, I'll help you win some money when it comes to Sleeper, the best fantasy platform out there, Helps you put your ball knowledge to the test by picking whether your favorite or least favorite players will have more or less than their projected stats each week. Stars play game 1 tonight at home against the Edmonton Oilers. I'm going to take Mikko Rantanen to have a goal and a half tonight. I guess it'll be more than a goal against the Edmonton Oilers, as we got the matchup between him and Connor McDavid. Looking forward to that matchup. If you want to make sure you combine your picks, the more picks you combine, the more you can win with Sleeper, all the way up to 100 times your money. Sleeper keeps you in the loop with instant alerts and breaking news for major injuries, and you can stay ahead of the game and be ready to be informed and outsmart your friends when it comes to Sleeper. If you think you have what it takes, new users can download the Sleeper app and use code DLLS Mavs to get $55 in free entries. When you place a $5 contest, you can apply it to any contest. It doesn't have to be your first. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states, so make sure you check out Sleeper today.
Folks, it's sunny outside, and that can only mean one thing. You need some sunglasses. Sunglasses make you look good. They make you feel good. And when you look good and feel good, you play good. I was actually horrified the other day because I thought that I had lost my trusty pair of Shady Rays. These things have been with me through thick and thin. Luckily, they just slipped between my car seat and the console and on my passenger side. Very tough location to find. But had I lost them, no sweat, because they have the best, most insane eyewear protection. Every single pair that you buy is backed by lost and stolen replacements, are lost and broken. If you don't love them, you can also return them within 30 days, but I promise you will. I love these bad boys. Take them with me everywhere I go, sometimes even underneath my passenger seat in my car. Exclusively for our listener, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code DLLS for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people, including me.
Let's welcome in our guest here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. He is a former three-point contest shootout winner, led the NBA in three-point percentage back in the 95-96 season, shooting 52.2% from the three-point line. He's our teammate here at the All City Network. You can catch him not only covering games on ESPN, but also in studio as well. He is, of course, former Dallas Maverick, Tim Legler. Tim, what's going on?
What's up, gentlemen? How's it going, man? You guys got to be feeling pretty good about what happened with that lottery, huh?
We are feeling pretty good about it. We're going to get into
best week of our lives, Tim.
That's right.
As it should be. That's justified description.
Okay, so let's get into it since we're there already when it comes to Cooper Flagg. If you could describe the Mavericks season in one word throughout all of the changes, the trade, the injuries, and then culminating with them winning the number 1 overall pick, what would that word be to describe the Mavericks season?
Oh, man, I guess it would be rejuvenation, right? Because they were, I mean, everything that happened, man, with it, when that trade went down, and what a gut punch it was to the fan base, to the city. And then, you think, well, at least let's take a look at some point at what Anthony Davis looks like with Kyrie, and we can maybe get over it if we start winning with those two guys. And Anthony Davis gets hurt immediately. Time he comes back, Kyrie is done for the year and a good majority of next year, most likely. That never came to fruition. We don't know. So the trade itself, everybody pretty much knows how I felt about the trade at the time. I haven't really changed my opinion despite what happened with the Lakers. I think, though, if you're being fair, you can't judge a trade until you're a few years removed from it. That's the only fair way to do it, because I think teams involved in trades look at much more than just this. Unless you're getting a guy that's like expiring contract, that's a star, and you're trying to win a title like that year, and then the guy leaves. Yeah, then you could judge it immediately. But that's not what this was. This is more about what it's going to be in the future. You can't judge it. We never got a chance to see what it looks like for Dallas. Small sample size for the Lakers. I don't think that was really necessarily that telling. So it comes down to this, the lottery, and shocking the world by getting the number 1 pick in a draft. That is as clear-cut number 1 pick as any you're going to find. And they have a generational talent coming in if they keep the pick and draft Cooper Flagg, which I would be, to me, insane not to. I could go on for, a entire hour-long show about Cooper Flagg and how long I've been watching him and what it is he's going to bring. He's a can't-miss star, and he's going to be immediately a guy that helps. Like, from day one, he will be on the court, and he will be helping the Dallas Mavericks win.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so-
it's the best thing that could have happened to the Dallas franchise. Obviously, no way to plan it, no way to have any idea that this is how it was going to go down. But what we've been debating on the show for 2 weeks now, 3 weeks now, however long ago it was, is just how do you go forward? What is the right way? What is the right path? What does the roster look like? Anthony Davis was not traded for thinking that Dallas had Cooper Flagg, who I think can play 3, can play 2, can play 5. Can play 4 though. Like if you look at the modern NBA, most players like Cooper Flagg usually play the 4. And Anthony Davis, who has always been best throughout his career at the 5, is somebody who also wants to play the 4. They're both kind of these really high level help side defenders, roaming defenders, who want those roles. They want to be helping off. They want to be the base of the defense, not the top of the defense. So just initial reactions with PJ Washington, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, and Daniel Gafford. That's a big front court. Might be too many names. What's your gut, first reaction of how, if you were in charge of this team, you would go around building for the future?
Well, I look at it like this: if you're first of all completely married to the idea that Anthony Davis, for whatever reason, does not want to play 5, like it matters to him to have a more traditional center on the court with him, so he can be, called a 4. Like that matters that much to him, and it's been made a big deal about that throughout his career. If that's the case, and you believe you need to make sure that happens, so let's just assume you're going to have a 5 on the court with him. Not the entire game. I think he's comfortable playing X amount of minutes per half at the 5, but at the start of each game, and probably the majority of his minutes, he wants a 5 next to him. If that's the case, and you're going to proceed with that mentality, then Cooper Flagg needs to be your starting 3. And, whether that's from day one or not remains to be seen, I guess, once he gets into camp and how comfortable he gets and how quickly. I personally think day one, you could drop him down on an NBA floor and he's going to be a very productive player because of his motor, his defensive prowess, his versatility defensively, his passing, and it's just athleticism. Like he can hang now. And so if you got him at the 3, AD at the 4, Gafford or Lively at the 5, that is elite level frontline defense. Now, offensively, Cooper Flagg, you'd love the 3 to be more get alongside Anthony Davis and a rim running center. You would love to have a 3 that can be comfortable out to 24 feet on a catch and shoots and also get his own shot out to 24 feet off the dribble. Right now, he's got, I think, some mechanical issues that he's got to iron out to get to that level. He can make 3-point college shots, and he did enough. That wasn't really his strength, and I don't think the percentage was nearly good enough for how good I think it can be, but it's not going to fix itself. I think he needs to work on some of his mechanics with his release. His handle is good enough. His athleticism is good enough to get that shot. And you're going to need that guy in that spot to be able to make threes if you got AD and a big on the court with him. It's that simple. So I think he's a starting player for you. That means that he's going to have to work really hard this summer to improve his long-term his long-distance efficiency, because I don't think it's going to be there right away, and that could create some offensive spacing problems for the Mavericks.
Legs, we've been told many countless times by Nico Harrison that defense wins championships. Now, Cooper Flagg is only 18. He's got a very long career ahead of him, but we're all of the opinion right now that you can drop him onto a court and he can defend at least 3 positions, if not 4, if not all 5. Long term, what kind of upside does he have as a defender? Is this like an all defense kind of guy? Is this like a defensive player of the year kind of guy? Or are we getting carried away by even thinking about that at this point?
No, I don't think you are at all. And I think let's start with, I think you got to see a little bit of a sample size to start talking defensive player of the year down the road. Like I've looked at Amin Thompson enough to know now after 2 years, that's what his future looks like. He's going to be a perennial all-league defender, and he's going to eventually be a defensive player of the year. You got to wait and see it at the NBA level. I think right off the bat, maybe not his rookie year, but starting like year 2, I think he can be in that same category as Amin Thompson in terms of a guy that's potentially an all-league defender. like pretty quickly he'll get there. Defensive player of the year, that's another tier, another level to get to down the road. But I think clearly that's the vein with which I see him. And the reason is because, number one, he's got about as much want to for a wing that's a high profile wing as anybody I've seen coming into the league as far as want to defender. He loves it. And if that's the first thing that stood out to me when I started hearing about him in the AAU circuit, he started to become like mythical, like the Cooper Flagg name. I start hearing, I'm really tied into guys in that community. So I would hear the name at a young age. And I saw him at 15 and I was like, I could take this guy tomorrow, put him on the court as a starter in a Power 5 conference in college, and the dude is going to hold his own at 15 because of how hard he plays, how much he wants it, the edge he's got. He's tough. He doesn't back down from anybody. And then the skill was there, the bounce, the athleticism, running the floor, handling it. His passing is very underrated. I think people started to appreciate it more as their tournament run went on at Duke. The guy's a hell of a playmaker. The shooting is probably, of all the things right now, it's probably the weak point of his game. I think the perimeter shot, and that's got to improve. The rest of it's there. The intangibles are there. I think it's a can't miss, and I think most coaches in the NBA feel the same way. That's why it was frustrating for a lot of guys in the West to see him go to the West. Like, you're thinking, if you're one of those teams in the Western Conference, you're thinking, well, if we don't get him, at least, let him end up in Washington or Charlotte or Toronto or one of those teams. And instead, he's right in the mix with a team that I think is going to be very relevant next year in the Western Conference. So the West just got better.
Well, now I feel even better.
Exactly. No, we feel
let's go.
Really good about the upside for Cooper Flagg. When you look at not just the skill set that he presents, your time in the league and playing against a lot of tremendous defenders and offensive players, what would be your best comp when it comes to Cooper Flagg, given the height, the weight, the skill set that he presents, that you look at and say his game is comparable to this particular player that you look at?
A little bit of Franz Wagner, I think, in him. A guy that's 6'10", that's got a similar physical profile, that's good athleticism and a really high motor, doesn't quit on plays. He might be quicker laterally than Franz Wagner right now to switch out onto guards and high-level ball handlers that can change direction. Like, that's a different level of defensive prowess. The one thing I'll say, and you had mentioned you think he can guard 3 positions, 3, 4, 5. The reason I think he can guard a lot of 2s is because the nature of the position has changed to such an extent that most of those guys are 3-point shot hunters. And they're not as creative in breaking you down off the dribble by, shifting weight and getting you off balance and going by you. They're looking to hunt step back threes. They're looking at catch and shoot threes. Like, that's the nature of the position now. That's going to be easier for Cooper Flagg to guard even that position. Point guards, it's a little different because of the number of ball screens they get. It's a lot of ball screen action you've got to guard, and most of those are switched. So I don't even know how much, all of that ball screen is going to matter that Cooper Flagg's on somebody that's a high-level player, because of one ball screen and he hands them off to somebody else. Where it comes into play, his impact, is the number of guys he can switch onto in a given possession and the amount of ground he covers as a weak side defender. Like, that backside defense and that weak side coverage, the amount of ground those guys can cover as a help defender, but also closeout length, that is where you're going to notice a tangible difference. And when you put him on the court at the same time with Anthony Davis, those are two guys that check that box, man. They can provide help as a rim deterrent, but they also have the length and want to get out and contest 3-point shots. It could be really special.
Yeah,
that
Derek Lively.
That part's really important, the closeout part.
Yeah, Derek Lively is another one of those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, he just plays right into that.
Yeah. It's super important, too, Legs, because the Mavs right now, like, we all kind of agree, offensively they need some more playmaking, but defensively they need a lot of help at the point of attack. And I don't know if Flagg is just that guy right now. And anyway, there's so many switches and so many mismatch hunting in the NBA going on that it's hard to even have just one of those guys and be okay. But having AD and Flagg, who can both kind of swoop in and then also close out and help, should help kind of cover up that weakness. But do you agree, if the Mavs have enough ammo to make, let's say, one big swing this summer to try and cover up for Kyrie's absence and make a run at it next year, is that the thing they should be targeting? And if not, what is the thing that the Mavs should be looking to improve at?
Yeah, I do think, as an insurance policy for now, everybody expects, Kyrie to come back from this. The time frame I've heard was kind of surprising. I thought it was a little bit short time frame for a guy of that caliber. That's on the shorter end of what I've heard, for an injury like that. I got experience. I got a matching set of ACL reconstruction. So I'm kind of, it's different though. Obviously the surgery itself, procedure is less invasive. The rehab is much better from it. I get all of that stuff. It still seems kind of short for me to think about him coming back February. It seems like maybe later. So you're talking about, most of next season, not getting a lot of time under his belt and then getting ready for the most intense part of the year. And we all know typically ACLs, Achilles, those are typically the following season when you start to see guys look normal again. So yeah, as an insurance policy, another ball handling, scoring type of guard. Yeah. I mean, those guys don't fall off trees. I mean, if you have one that's good, as long as he's not a narcissist, usually you want to keep those guys. So I'm not sure, who that could possibly be. I haven't started thinking about teams yet, how they're going to rebuild, because I'm still finishing this season with these final 4 teams. But yeah, I think as an insurance policy for next year and beyond, getting some help there would be good for them, because they are a little bit thin in that regard.
Tim, this was tremendous stuff. We have enjoyed your work throughout the course of the year, obviously covering the games and calling the games throughout the NBA playoffs as well. And, of course, doing your thing with Adam Mars on the All-NBA podcast. We appreciate you taking out some time with us here on the DLLS Mavs podcast, sir, and we'll talk to you next time. We appreciate it.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
There it goes. Tim Legler, of course, co-host on the All-NBA podcast with Adam Mares, Mavericks legend. Appreciate him hanging out with us here.
Great first name.
Yeah. We're going to have to get to a question a little bit later on.
The best Tim that's ever been on this show.
As a guest.
Wow, shots fired at McMahon.
Oh, boy. Okay, here we go. Coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs podcast, let's jump into the Mavericks multiverse a little bit. What happens if the Mavericks continue to compete with Cooper Flagg right now? We'll jump into that next on the DLLS Mavs podcast.
Man, we did our show yesterday remote. It's so good to be back in the studio with Empire Today flooring. Just feels so much more stable. I feels my legs feel springier. Feels like my vertical leap is somewhere. It's closer to Cooper Flagg's than it was yesterday.
Wow,
that's for sure. Not much closer.
Yeah,
it's 5 inches to 10.
Does it help that we're on the 4th floor of a building? Or
yeah, maybe,
okay.
Maybe that's about how high he can leap. Why is Empire Today your best bet for a new floor? Because Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they're going to be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ballgame with them. Their flooring experts can bring their showroom right to your home. You can pick out the right flooring and the right colors for your space. You can see how it looks on your furniture in your house. Schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. DLLS listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code DLLS. Yes, you heard that right. A $350 discount with the code DLLS. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/DLLS for full details.
The Western Conference Final is about to start in the NHL. It is Stars, Oilers. Stars fans, join me in celebrating and join us in celebrating and join the game tonight. Should be easy, so don't overthink it. What to wear? Just toss on your lucky jersey. Craig Ludwig for Game 7 against the Avalanche wore one of his own game-used jerseys, and that delivered the Stars to the second round. I can only imagine what he's going to wear to get the Stars to the Cup final. Don't know what to serve your friend as you're watching the game? Easy. Pick up some pizza from your go-to spot and grab some Bud Light to stock your fridge. It is that easy. Just like Bud Light, which is always brewed with 4 simple ingredients for a clean, crisp taste. We're drinking it all throughout the Stars playoff run, and I hope you do as well, but responsibly. Bud Light, it's easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Enjoy responsibly. 21 plus. Anheuser-Busch Bud Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
Appreciate you joining us here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to DLLS Sports as we are inching that much closer to 25,000 subscribers. So you can download our podcast wherever you get your podcasts for free. Just search DLLS Mavs. Let's get into it. Let's hop into the Mavs multiverse a little bit. What will the Mavericks look like if they compete right now, knowing they've got the #1 pick in the NBA draft? Presumptively, is going to be Cooper Flagg, of course, from Duke University. Tanner, let's look at the 2025 offseason roster when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks, particularly when it comes to what they have right now. Now, an addendum to this, of course, as this is courtesy of Bobby Marks, putting together what is the starting five, reserves, projected salary, free agents, and exceptions. Now, we got to make an exception, of course, because now they do have the number 1 overall pick. So don't worry about what
bringing Clay off the bench, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Interesting. Yes. Kyrie Irving, Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively. Well, yes, as Bobby points out, he has Klay Thompson coming off the bench, but we know Klay Thompson was a starter for the Dallas Mavericks. But you can see,
hot take, that lineup plays 0 minutes together next season.
Kyrie Irving, Najee Marshall, PJ Washington, Anthony Davis, and Derek Lively.
They will not play a single minute together. Okay.
All right. We'll mark that down, Tanner, and we'll come back to that at the end of the next season. The projected salary for the Dallas Mavericks, $200 million. Their tax threshold at a little over $187 million, with the first apron being at $195.9 million. The second apron, $207.8 million. It includes free agents Spencer Dinwiddie, Dante Exum. Kyrie Irving has a player option, so does Dwight Powell, and Kessler Edwards is a restricted free agent. Kai Jones, an unrestricted free agent. They do have a tax mid-level exception and 3 trade exceptions as well to go along with some of the things that they have available to them this summer. So that kind of gives you a lay of what is to come in terms of the available resources for the Dallas Mavericks. So if the Mavericks do compete right now with Cooper Flagg, what does that begin to look like as the roster is currently constructed, or if they make a move or two going forward here?
I mean, you think they're probably going to try to get under the first apron, but maybe not. Not necessarily. They don't have to, but it's certainly every team is incentivized to. Every team is looking to do that if at all possible. They're a little bit deeper into the first apron thanks to the Cooper and just the first round salary slot. So the problem is that even the guys that make sense to be moved, which is PJ and Gafford, and we've debated how much that makes sense and which one makes more sense and what it might look like. They don't make that much money relatively. You're not getting huge relief. Most of the salary is going to be Anthony Davis and then Kyrie Irving, and Kyrie Irving may well re-sign at a higher price tag. It could be a situation where you add Cooper and you move on from PJ and you move on from Jaden Hardy, and you're still right there. Like if Kyrie Irving makes $5 or $6 million more. In fact, it could be a situation, and Dallas has done this before, where Kyrie opts out and then is the last person to sign, and he signs basically up to the first apron threshold. But that also, limits what you can do in the season. It limits your ability, as we just saw. It would limit if you don't have any flexibility before the salary cap. It limits later in the season your flexibility on the buyout market. It just limits stuff. It's a limiting thing. So maybe it is a scenario where it'd be best for it's certainly not best for Dallas to go over. So this is all getting up to the point of like Dallas isn't just going to trade PJ just to trade him. They're trying to get back a creator. They're trying to get back somebody who could help. There's a lot of gymnastics that are going to be going on.
It becomes tougher too. That graphic was made right at the end of the Mavs season, whenever they were projected to have. At that point, they hadn't even won the coin toss to move up to 11th, so they were projected to have the 12th pick. Cooper Flagg makes a lot more than that, and so their projected salary in that is actually significantly lower than it would be just by adding him. And why that matters is right now, if nothing changes and all the Mavs players opt in that can, and they stay and they don't make any moves or whatever, right now the Mavs would be beyond the second apron. And that means you can't you can't do anything. You can't take back more money. You can't aggregate players in trades. You can only sign players to the minimum, and that's a problem because if you're trying to win, like if you were trying to compete, we just saw last year, minimum players can only take you so far. The Mavs had a minimum salary backcourt, Spencer Dinwiddie and Brandon Williams, down the stretch last season, and they lost a lot. Now, granted, AD was out. Hopefully, AD plays a lot this year. You can't guarantee that, obviously, but if he does, that gives you a chance. But you need quality players in your backcourt. You need quality playmakers in order to win, which might require you to make a trade unless you can open up some money in other places, which is certainly possible. But the financial aspect is just really, but we're going to keep harping on that all summer because that makes it significantly tougher to add good players to help you win now if you can't clean that up. Now, the Mavs have a pretty talented and famous dude running their cap, this guy named Andrew Baker. He's been around the league for a while, pretty smart dude. I'm sure that they have some plans to create some flexibility, and Kyrie taking a bit of a pay cut would be massive. But because they won the lottery, even that wouldn't be enough. That's the thing that complicates it. Had they stayed at 11 or even moved down to 12 and Kyrie takes a pay cut, they get the full mid-level. They can go do all sorts of stuff, and it's going to be great and awesome. Now it's not even that simple, and so they are going to have to get pretty creative. But, as Legs just said last segment, if Kyrie misses till January, that's one thing. But if he misses until March, that's a whole nother beast. That's 60, 65 games that he's missing. That is really, really tough to make up for with guys on the minimum. And we haven't even talked about losing Exum and potentially losing some other guys, including Dinwiddie.
Yeah, and Dallas can't go into the season, even on the inside, even knowing what they know about Kyrie's rehab. They don't know. There's no way that in July, when you are planning for the season ahead, when you are potentially, when you are acquiring that creator, that person who can help make up for his absence, there's no way to know that he's going to be back in January or March because Kyrie's not going to know. He's not going to be someone who gets back on the court until he feels like he's ready to be back on the court. And even if he's optimistic, the team's optimistic, everybody's optimistic that it's going to be on the shorter side, there is no way to know. So you have to plan this season as if he's only going to come back in March. Because if you don't, then it's a lost season. If you just plan for a half-season fill-in replacement, we're not going to be as good of a team as we would like to be, but we'll catch up. We're going to catch up a lot of ground when Kyrie comes back in January. You don't know he's coming back in January. Kyrie could tell you that he's aiming to come back in January, that's the hope. And then it just doesn't happen like that. So it's
setbacks happen all the time. I mean,
sure.
Jesus, man, Clay tore his knee in the finals and then missed the whole next year because he injured his Achilles during rehab.
I don't even mean setbacks though.
I mean, you have to plan for the worst case scenario, even if you're hoping for the best case, right?
I don't think they can plan for a setback that causes them to miss the entire year.
Obviously, I mean, that's I'm just saying you have to. I hope that they, and I've said this before, I hope they operate with the expectation and urgency of a team that could be without him all year. Because then if you get him back, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But what you don't want to do is bank on him missing 40 and then he misses 60 and you're boned.
Yeah, and one of the important things, and Legler mentioned it during the last segment too, is even in the ideal scenario that Kyrie Irving comes back, and let's say he comes back right after the All-Star break, so we're talking about late February, potentially at the earliest, as a best-case scenario potentially, it's going to take him a while to get himself not only reacclimated in terms of the play game and play speed, but also physically getting back to the kind of player that he was prior to the ACL, and usually that occurs for a player a year after they have had a kind of injury, whether it's an Achilles or an ACL. So we may not see Kyrie Irving fully back to the kind of player that he was prior to the torn ACL. I think one of the things for me, if they're going to continue to compete now, is making sure that the commitment, I'm talking about the center position here, is committing to Derek Lively II being your starting five going forward to allow him to play alongside Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg to give you what I think is the rangiest, most lengthy, most athletic portion
badass front court
of your front court that you can get. I understand how well Gafford played, especially leading up to the NBA Finals, but Derek Lively is your best center on this roster if AD is committed to playing the four, given the roster construction that they have and AD's desire to play the four. Derek Lively needs to be the starting center from day one and establish that chemistry with him, Flagg, and Davis, and then you go forward with figuring out the rest. But to me, that's got to be the number one thing in terms of the front court of them competing. Derek Lively has to be the starting five going forward from now on.
It's way easier for me to see next season essentially looking like a gap year than one that Dallas wins anything more than a playoff series.
Sure.
Just logistically. I'm not. This is not a statement about the high-end ceiling of this team when fully healthy. It's just literally, it's so difficult to see, basically they have to build a team that's a playoff team without Kyrie for the entire season.
I agree that Lively is the best center on their team, but where we saw Gafford really shine last year is the times whenever Luka and Kyrie or one of them or both of them, unfortunately, were out, where he can at least create some offense. And I wouldn't necessarily, this sounds condescending. I promise I don't mean it this way. I wouldn't mistake that for being better. Like he is a better shot creator for himself than Lively. He can do more with the ball than Lively. And I would argue that Gafford being on the floor makes bad point guards' jobs easier because they can just dump it down to him and he can go to work. But if they are able to at least somewhat replace Kyrie's playmaking, then Lively has to be the guy because the defensive upside of a Flagg, AD, Lively front court is like
it's monstrous.
Cannot compute. You
Yeah.
know? There's a lot of switchability. That is a lot of length, a lot of shot blocking, a lot of rebounding, a lot of mean, nasty boys.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about it from if they operate under the assumption that with defense winning championships from Nico Harrison. I mean, Derek Lively's ability not only to play in the paint, but I think he's a little bit better in terms of yarding out in space a little bit better as well when you start thinking about what the Mavericks are trying to do defensively. That would be where I would start. But obviously there are a lot of things that have to go well for this team to compete right now, and even with the injury situation that they're dealing with and what their roster could look like going forward. Let's take our final break here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. When we come back, let's flip it on the other side of the Mavs multiverse. What if the Mavericks decide to rebuild now that they have the number one pick presumptively with Cooper Flagg? We'll dive into that coming up next year on the DLLS Mavs podcast. But I want to help you become a diehard member. 3 days in a row. How about
Folks,
that?
he's doing it again.
If I want to help you become a diehard member here and join our DLLS sports family, visit alldlls.com to become a diehard member for just $7 a month right now. You get access to all of our tremendous benefits, whether it's our member-only Discord, 20% off events, tremendous content from our guy Tim Cato covering the Dallas Mavericks, Sam Nessler, Sean Shapiro covering the Dallas Stars, Jeff Wilson doing it all for the Texas Rangers, and, of course, Clarence Hill Jr. and Joseph Hoyt covering your Dallas Cowboys, who are in the middle of OTAs right now. They're all over it for you when it comes for your Cowboys as they get ready for this upcoming season. You get your physical diehard card as well to show off as you become a member of our family. And the easiest way that you can join us here is to like, comment, and subscribe to DLLS Sports and join the over 24,800 strong when it comes to our subscriber count here at DLLS Sports. Again, alldlls.com. We've got tremendous merchandise as well on our team store as well. We've got our Stars gear that you can see if you're watching us live right now with our finisher shirts. We got the 53C 16-bit Wyatt Johnson jerseys as well for your Dallas Stars.
Got a big moose taking a puck down the ice.
That's right.
I got that one. That one's on the way for me.
In honor of our guy, Miko Ranson. By the way, happy birthday to our guy, D-Line. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So
Shout out Eric. That's great. I also have heard rumors that there's another Star shirt on the way, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to buy that one too myself.
Oh, okay. So looking forward to that. And plus, coming very, very soon, our DLLS Wings podcast. So we've got a lot coming here.
Coming very soon.
Like very, very soon.
It could not possibly be sooner.
Wings back in action tonight as they take on the Minnesota Lynx. Paige Becker is returning home to Minnesota tonight for the first time as a WNBA.
Can they get a win, please?
We'll find out. It's gonna be a little rough tonight. We'll see. But again, alldlls.com. Become a diehard member today and join us here in our DLLS Sports family. We'll get to your super chats here in just a moment. In fact, let's just jump into it and get to it real quick. From Kevin H with the $1.99 super chat. Thoughts on Walter Clayton and taking him at the end of the first round?
I like him. That'd be cool. I don't know how Dallas would go about doing that, but obviously they've traded into the first round before, and Clayton probably is going to go like 22 to 28. That's about where Dallas traded in to get Omax. So it's plausible, and I think he is one of the more ready and a little bit older, so a little bit more of a ready now guy. Would bring shooting. Not a two-way guy, but I think it's plausible.
Sheldon Fennell with the $4.99 super chat. Appreciate it. What point guards can play with Kyrie Irving? I'm thinking Anthony Black, Dyson Daniels, Lonzo Ball. Thoughts on asking prices for those players?
Anthony Black and Dyson Daniels. I mean, Dyson Daniels is really good. You probably have to overpay to get him. Anthony Black, good playmaker, good defender. Shooting leaves some to be desired, and that would be a big issue on this team specifically, I think. Lonzo Ball, though, it's funny you mentioned that.
Because we're going to get into the Mavs multiverse of what if they decide to rebuild with Cooper Flagg and move forward with him as the centerpiece right now. when it comes to this team. A lot to get into when it comes to that because you start looking at the ages for some of these players, particularly Anthony Davis will be 33 next March. Kyrie Irving will be 34 in March when he comes back from his torn ACL. And Klay Thompson will be 36 in February. So you're getting a little bit older pretty quickly when it comes to this roster. And with the lottery ticket that they've been given, is it feasible? Is it prudent for the Mavericks to begin rebuilding now with Cooper Flagg given this roster? We got some trades to go over.
I mean, they're not going to do it. We know that.
We know that, yes.
Yeah, but what I'd say is this. I think there's a lot of ways that you would not have to. If I'm running the Dallas Mavericks, you are not tearing it down. Cooper Flagg is too good right now. You'd run into the same problem that Dallas had with Luka. Luka was so good so quickly that the team wasn't bad enough to go get some more picks. And then they made the big move for Kristaps. But it was already pretty obvious at that point. Even if Luka, if Dallas had gone in the next season even without making that Kristaps move, they were going to be too good to go get more players to play next to him. And so really the question is there a way to align the timeline without, you're not moving on from Kyrie, but you're also understanding that Kyrie might take some time. So you're just realigning the timeline around Cooper while still trying to win now.
I don't know. I think that there's a way to be pretty bad this year. I don't think Flagg is that kind of player yet, but maybe he is. I guess we'll find out.
But that's why you have a gap year built in.
Sure, yeah.
It's a forced gap year because of Kyrie.
Yeah. So if you are going to try and reposition, right? If you're going to try and clean up your books a little bit, create some flexibility, give yourself the chance to not only get a little younger now, add picks in the future, and open up a lot of salary cap options in the next year or two. Here are 3 ways you can do it. They all involve trading one guy. Obviously, Anthony Davis isn't going anywhere, but he does make the most money on the team, so it makes sense to start with him. We're not spending too much time on any of these. Maybe these trade ideas suck, but there's only one way to find out. Tanner, let's go to the screenshots. Option number 1. Let's trade him to the Eastern Conference, to the Miami Heat. Let's get back Andrew Wiggins and Terry Rozier on an expiring $26 million contract.
Wow.
And then the Heat send a bunch of picks, including the number 20 pick in this year's draft, which maybe they could use that to get Walter Clayton. Who knows? The Mavs also get a 29-1, a 31-1, and then the rights to swap in 2028. You're not very good if you make this trade. You're not having a good season, but you're getting a lot of picks. You're getting a lot younger, and you're also opening up a lot of salary options very, very soon. Next option, and that's Miami would want Anthony Davis because they want to get good now, and I think AD and Bam actually kind of fits decent.
Matches their mentality, their star mentality. Even if it doesn't turn them into contenders, they always want to get stars because it reinforces the idea that stars go to Miami, which is good for business.
And they're desperate. Miami's desperate right now. Next one, send Anthony Davis home to the Eastern Conference, to the Chicago Bulls. Get back a bunch of dudes on expiring contracts and Lonzo Ball, who Mark Stein has said teams could potentially be interested in Lonzo Ball to come in and play point. Obviously, he's had a ton of injury issues in recent seasons. Been really unfortunate to see one of my favorite players in the league whenever he's healthy and able to go. The Bulls also send a 27-1, a 29-1, and the right to swap in 2031. So the Mavs get a couple picks that could be pretty good. And then, like I said, a bunch of expirings to clean up their books. You duck the apron. You potentially open up cap space as soon as next season by doing that. But again, with that trade, you're not very good. You're not very good.
I kind of like that one, though. If we're talking about in the rebuilding phase of this, I think that gives you a lot of flexibility to do some different things there that can also help you recoup some picks that you're not going to have control of in 27 through 30.
If you want maximum flexibility and also a young player, you could trade AD in conference to the Portland Trailblazers. You get back DeAndre Ayton on a huge expiring contract, which you could maybe move around. Matisse Thybulle, huge expiring, not huge, $11 million expiring, which you could potentially package and move around. You also get Scoot Henderson. Maybe the Blazers are like, let's keep Anthony Simons, let's keep Shaedon Sharpe. Scoot is the excess, and you also get a couple ones. That might be a little rich, honestly, for AD, but Ayton, pretty undesirable contract situation. They get back Jaden Hardy to make up some of that playmaking off the bench. I'm not sure that the Blazers would actually do this, but I think Portland is not far away from being pretty good, and AD could, honestly, with that team, could potentially put them with Klingon too. By the way, that fits really well on offense.
Yeah,
that could put them in the top 6.
I agree with you. I think there's some reason to think that Portland wouldn't hang up the phone, that they would think about something like that, that they would look to accelerate the timeline slightly, because they feel like their young players are in place. Whereas Dallas would be in the situation where they feel like they need a few more young players to join and to meet the timeline that Cooper now presents them. I think that's my favorite. It's the one idea of the 3 that appeals to me as well a little bit. You're getting a rotation player in Tybal, and you're taking a swing on someone like Scoot Henderson, and you're taking a swing on someone who isn't instantly like you're the star of this team. Even if he's filling in a lot for Kyrie's absence. I'm not super high on Scoot Henderson, but I do think that taking swings on lottery talents or former lottery talents is worthwhile. That said, I think next year is going to be a gap year, and so dressing a gap year in some ways, I think there's merit for that, but I don't know.
In all of those
The
trades,
NBA is a
you're getting significantly worse in all of those trades. I mean, I know that we were branded an AD hater show. Now we're a Luka hater show.
Right.
I'm a Shea hater. We just hate everybody.
We just hate everybody on the show.
Nobody's
apparently.
good. But let's not lose sight of the fact Anthony Davis is really, really freaking good.
Yeah.
And the Mavs' lack of playmaking is going to hurt them this year to a degree that I don't think that many people are ready to, imagine and can understand at this point. But in the meantime, sticking it out with this group is perfectly justifiable if you have all the faith in the world Kyrie is healthy for 26-27. The Mavs, though, do have their own pick in 2026. If you get way worse this year, you could get a really good player in 2026, and then you're off to the races for the next, however long it takes for you to trade them for the next aging superstar. But they have options. They could be really good this year if Kyrie comes back quickly and they're able to swing a trade. They could be really good next year if they hang on and everyone comes back well. Like this team has a chance to be very, very damn good. If they want to take a step back, though, they can do that.
And one more way to look at it is if you make a trade like that, if you look at next season, you go through every single option of who you can bring as a creator. You get very real and serious about having to look at Kyrie's injury as something you have to plan around for an entire season. That even when he gets back, he is going to be kind of on the side as a get back to Kyrie journey. And that is a different type of journey than make up ground and get into the postseason journey. If you look at all those things and think...
Could you imagine rehabbing Kyrie trying to shake Caruso?
Right.
That's impossible.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
I was going to say he didn't do it last year. They mostly doubled him. But still, that's going to happen. Even if Kyrie comes back, if he's the only creator that you've got on the team, only lead creator, only point creator, then you're in a situation where teams are going to send a bunch of double. They're going to make his life hell. That's a really tricky situation to be in. So you look at all of that, you get really honest about it, and then you remember first-round picks are cash. That is the currency of the NBA. And so what you're doing is not resetting the timeline in the sense of, okay, Dallas is going to be bad for like 5 years. 3 years, whatever, even 2 years. What you're saying is the stakes or the reality of next season is so difficult to overcome and requires so many things going right that actually Anthony Davis trading him at the peak of his value and then resetting your bank, your bank account to make sure that you can go make another swing here in a little bit.
But getting all those expirings is good too.
Yes,
that reasoning there is why they're not going to do this, but this is the reason as you started to state is why I would go down this road now, because you have a chance to not only reset with a franchise cornerstone with Cooper Flagg. Today's NBA requires you to have young, cheap talent, allows you to have maximum flexibility and have a high-level guy at the top to be able to build around going forward. And you have the gift now, if we were to believe Cooper Flagg is what he's going to be in the future here, you have a chance to start that timeline right now. And if you can do that, I think, to me, a young core, if you're going to keep P.J. Washington, for example, a young core of P.J. Washington, Derek Lively II, Cooper Flagg, and take your pick, I think that's a great way to start with Flagg, Lively, and P.J. Washington. and go forward from there as far as a young core is concerned. Especially if you're on the defense wins now train, you have a chance to, I think, reset that clock and begin to do so. But again, this team is in win now mode, and they're going to continue to go down the road.
And they have the talent to win now. But again, they need Kyrie to be Kyrie Irving. And until he is Kyrie Irving, I'm going to believe that it's going to be a long time before that is the case, which is really unfortunate. So if they want to win, they have to act with urgency, not desperation, but with urgency.
Because these guys are getting older by the second.
If the GOAT, Tim Legler, believes that they need some quality in here, they need some quality in here. It's not just coming from us.
Yeah.
It's not just coming from the three guys that hate your favorite team. Your least favorite guys that hate your favorite team. No, it is coming from the legend himself, Tim Legler.
Appreciate our guy Tanner making us look good and sound good as always. Thank you, sir. Thank you to Tim Legler for joining us during our show. If you miss anything, make sure you go back and watch or listen on our podcast at DLLS Mavs. That is our Mavericks analyst, Bobby Curl. That is our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato. I'm your host, Kevin Gray. We are DLLS Mavs. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 12 p.m. right here on DLLS Sports. Y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.